Good morning, everybody. This is Sunday morning, February 7th, and this is our last lecture. I'm sure you're happy to hear that. So I will be discussing the effects of distractions, drowsiness, and emotions on driving this week. And as always, I'll give you the assignment. I'll email it to you later today. And as always, it will be due next Saturday, which would be the 13th of February, okay? So what'll happen next weekend is I will post the final exam, and I'll give you a week to complete the final exam. I'll talk more about that next week, okay? So this week coming, we are driving with Group A, and my plan, as some of you may know, I'm back in quarantine. So it seems like every time I come out of quarantine, I go back in. So I had started helping Tim's students to make up missed time when I got shut down. So I have the assistance this week of a gentleman by the name of Frank, who is a fantastic instructor as well as a great guy. And he is available this week to help us to start making up time. So I'm going to be emailing people individually, in addition to your regular, we're going to drive regularly Group A this week, but you may get an email from me that is asking about your availability on a certain day or time this week if you and your partner are able to drive, okay? So just look out for that in case I do reach out to you. And by next week, the week of February 15th, I'll be out of quarantine, and hopefully at that point, I'll stay out, and I can also help to make up time so we can achieve our goal, which is to finish all driving by the end of February and to get you your completion certificates, okay? So today we talk about the effects of distractions, drowsiness, and emotions on driving. We've talked about the effects of alcohol and drugs. The effects of drowsiness, distractions, and emotions are just as powerful, sometimes even more powerful than alcohol, okay? And they're much more common, especially with people in your age group. I'm not saying drinking and driving doesn't happen in your age group. Unfortunately, it does. But statistics show that more drinking and driving accidents, collisions happen with older drivers, like people in my age group, than yours. But distracted driving, drowsiness, emotions, really is very, very common with all age groups, okay? So let's start with distracted driving. So driver distraction and inattention are major factors of impairment. And I'm going to give you a few statistics. You know that once in a while I like to give you them and make a note of them. So the first fact that I'm giving you is that 80% of all collisions involve some form of driver inattention. Okay, that's obviously a huge number. 80% of all collisions involve some form of driver inattention. And each year in this country, actually in North America, in the continent of North America, each year driver inattention is a factor in more than 1 million crashes. Okay, so those are a few powerful statistics. Looking away from the path of travel, for 2 or more seconds doubles the likelihood of a crash. So you turn your head to look at your phone or your radio or to somebody in the back seat, and you turn your head away from the road for 2 seconds, what you've done is you've doubled the likelihood of having a crash. Young drivers, like yourselves, are especially susceptible to becoming distracted while driving. It's the inexperience, it's the newness of things. Sometimes you're showing off for your friends, whatever the case may be. Statistics show your age group is more likely to be affected by distracted driving than my age group, okay? And every state now in this country has legislation under which drivers can be penalized for inattentive driving. So it's become such an issue that there are laws that regulate this problem, okay? Let's talk about distraction itself. So a distraction is a situation, an event, or a person that draws the driver's attention away from driving. That's common sense. So anything, whether it's something going on the road or a person in or out of your car, that draws your attention away from driving is a distraction. Inattention is, in particular, more mental. So inattention is when the driver's attention has drifted away from the task of driving that has been influenced by a situation, event, or person. So when we talk about inattention, we're talking more mental than physical, okay? So the effects of distraction. The effects of distraction can affect the driving performance in at least 3 ways. So these are the ways typically that distraction affects the driver. Number 1, slowed perception. So if you're distracted, it takes you longer to perceive of a situation in front of you, like a car pulling out of a parking lot. So slowed perception is one thing that's affected. That is the result of distraction, okay? Number 2, delayed decision making. So if your perception is delayed, then your ability to make a decision, to choose the right action, is also going to be affected and delayed. And number 3, improper action. So if your decision making is affected, then you're more likely to take the wrong step in a given situation. Okay, so your action after your decision is delayed. So for instance, suppose you see some lane blockage in the road and you have to make a sudden direction change, either turning the wheel, in some way to make a direction change. You may be either turning the wheel too slow or too late to avoid a collision. Okay, so again, the 3 ways in which driving can be affected by distraction. Number 1, slowed perception. Number 2, delayed decision making. And number 3, improper action. And obviously those 3 things are all interrelated. So what are some types of distraction? Well, either physical or mental, or a combination of both. Okay, and that's often more the case. So of course, a physical distraction causes the driver to take his or her hands off the wheel or eyes off the road. Okay, so you're physically distracted from driving. Hands off the wheel, eyes off the road. For instance, if you're reaching for an object in the car. A mental distraction are activities that take the driver's mind off the road, of course, right? So a conversation with someone in the car that could distract you mentally. Or thinking about something bad that happened that day. Your mind goes somewhere else. Some examples of distractions. Let's start with passengers in your car. Passengers in your car can be a serious distraction, mental or physical. And for teenage drivers, especially so. I may have mentioned this statistic to you early in the semester, but if I did, I'm repeating it. So for teen drivers, the addition of just one teen in your car doubles the likelihood of a fatal crash. Think about that. So you're 17, you just got your license, you're driving, and your friend is in the car, your friend who's your age, a peer, teenager. You've now statistically doubled your chances of having a fatal car crash because you have another teenager in your car. And for every teenager you add, you now double your chances of having a fatal accident. So when you're driving with your friends in the car, statistically speaking, you're putting yourself in much greater danger than if you were driving alone or with someone older. Okay? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Again, showing off, conversation, you enjoy your friend's company, so you get distracted very easily. Another distraction, very common, is adjusting the radio. Reaching for a moving or loose object. We've all done that. Using a cell phone, of course. Okay? Cell phone statistics. Cell phones account for more than 2,600 motor vehicle fatalities each year in this country. 2,600 deaths because of motor vehicle accidents are caused by cell phone usage. And 300,000 collisions are caused by cell phone usage. 2,600 deaths, 300,000 collisions. The overall risk of collision while using your cell phone increases by 400%. Think about that. 400% increased risk of having a collision if you're using a cell phone. And that may be dialing, may be talking and listening. Of course, texting is a huge problem, okay? And it's interesting because we now have these hands-free devices that allow us to talk on our cell phones, the Bluetooth, okay? And the law allows you to do that as opposed to talking by holding your phone. Now, statistics show that there's no difference in the danger that is created by speaking on your phone, whether hands-free or whether holding the phone. And yet the law allows you hands-free devices. So while legally you may be able to do that, statistically you're putting yourself in just as much danger as a driver than you would be if you were speaking by holding your phone. So keep that in mind. That's interesting, I think. Okay? And of course, texting is even riskier than talking on the phone because obviously texting draws your eyes away from the road. Okay? Some other distractions that are significant. Navigation. So in my day, when I was your age or in my 20s and 30s, I guess, it was the map. We would reach for the map, okay? And that, of course, distracted us. We're fortunate to have GPS now, but GPS as well can be a distraction. Sometimes that map that comes up on your GPS draws your eyes away from the road, or that voice that's telling you where to go, especially if you're in unfamiliar territory, can be a distraction. Some internal distractions: eating while driving, drinking, obviously alcohol, but any drinking, you're grabbing for your coffee could be a distraction. Grooming. I've seen women put makeup on while they're driving. I've seen men and women, brushing the hair or fixing your hair, okay? Adjusting vehicle controls, radio, heat, whatever it might be. If you have a pet in the car, that could be a huge distraction. Whether the pet's in the front seat or the back, it could be distracting you, okay? Distractions outside the vehicle. One very common distraction for drivers outside the vehicle is crash scenes. Human instinct, we naturally want to see what's going on. And there's a term called rubbernecking, which means looking at an accident on the side of the road. So the idea of that expression is as if your neck was rubber, and extends. Rubbernecking is a very serious danger. Okay? And we really have to fight it. If you're driving, it's very difficult not to rubberneck when you see an accident. Human instinct is we're drawn away from the road. Okay? Other distractions that are very common outside the vehicle: emergency vehicles, ambulances, fire engines. Okay? Objects, whether they're vehicles, other vehicles, pedestrians, debris on the road, other collisions, as we said. Billboards and signs can be a big distraction, especially billboards. Those big signs can really, and they're designed, the amazing thing is, the advertising industry, of course, this is a big way in which they get your attention, but in actuality, they're drawing your eyes away from the road. They don't care because they want to make money, they want to advertise, but unfortunately, it does draw our attention away from the road and can be a big danger. Construction zones are another very common outside the vehicle distraction. Animals. We do whatever we can to avoid hitting the animal unless there is the potential for danger to humans. And I probably mentioned this already as well. Very difficult situation if a dog jumps in front of your car. Okay? Instinct, of course, is to slam on your brake or to turn your wheel. You don't want to hit the dog. It is a split-second decision. But in reality, if we can avoid humans, whether in my car or another car, being injured or killed by hitting the animal, we're supposed to hit the animal. Okay, and again, that's hard to hear. We all love animals. And again, it's a split-second decision. So, the instinct is naturally to avoid hurting the animal. But in reality, if our split-second decision-making enables us to judge the situation whereby avoiding hitting that animal is going to cause me to hit that car, that pedestrian, well, I may have to hit the animal. Okay, and of course, none of us wants to hear that, but that's the idea of prioritizing human life over animal life. Okay? Obviously, other roadway users. And remember, if your eyes are off the road for 2 or more seconds, you've doubled your chances of a collision.